Tonight, let's settle in with one of literature's most beautiful novels. A story about a family, a lighthouse, and how time changes everything. No need to stay awake for every word. Let the sound of this story wash over you like the sea. Just listen and drift. Imagine wanting something simple, a trip to a lighthouse across the bay, and imagine that one small wish changing everything for an entire family. It's the Scottish coast, sometime before the First World War. A large summer house stands on a cliff, looking out over the sea. "Yes, of course, if it's fine tomorrow," says Mrs. Ramsay. Those words open the novel, a mother's promise to her youngest son. James is 6 years old. He sits on the floor cutting pictures from a catalog, and the lighthouse is the most magnificent thing in his world. Then his father speaks. But it won't be fine. Mr. Ramsay delivers this like a verdict, like a judge handing down weather as punishment. Something breaks inside the boy. Woolf writes that James imagines striking his father with an axe or a poker. A child's pure fury. Between them stands Mrs. Ramsay. She shields, she soothes. She holds this family together by sheer force of will and warmth. Look out the window with James. There it is, the lighthouse. White and black striped, standing on its rock, sending light across the water. Into this family scene walks Charles Tansley, Mr. Ramsay's young disciple. He agrees immediately. The weather will be terrible. There'll be no landing. Tansley comes from a working-class family. His father was a chemist. Among these privileged people, he feels every rough edge of his own origins. He says it more than once throughout the novel. Woman can't paint, women can't write. It's his armor, his way of feeling superior to someone. Speaking of women who can paint, meet Lily Briscoe. She's small, sharp, featured, determined, and she's working on a canvas out on the lawn. She's trying to capture what she sees through the window, Mrs. Ramsay reading to James. Not a portrait, but a feeling, a shape, a truth. William Bankies is here too. An old friend of Mr. Ramsay's, a botanist, quiet and precise. He watches Mrs. Ramsay with hidden admiration. Everyone looks at Mrs. Ramsay. She's beautiful, even strangers notice, but she doesn't rest easy in that beauty. It feels like a burden she carries. The house is full of children, 8 Ramsay children altogether, plus guests, plus visitors who stay for weeks. It's chaos wrapped in summer warmth. In the garden, Augustus Carmichael dozes in a deck chair. He's an old poet that nobody quite notices. A book lies open on his wide chest. Inside, Mrs. Ramsay reads to James. A fairy tale, The Fisherman and His Wife. A story about someone who always wants more than they have. Listen to the echo. A wife who wants more. A bigger house, a kingdom, the power of God. The fisherman's wife is never satisfied with what she has. Outside, Mr. Ramsay paces the lawn like a caged animal. He's reciting poetry to himself. Tennyson's Charge of the Light Brigade. Stormed at with shot and shell. Here's what's eating at him. He's a philosopher, and he thinks of human knowledge as an alphabet. He's reached Q, but he's terrified he'll never reach R. What that really means is this. A brilliant man who fears he's mediocre. A thinker who will never be Darwin or Shakespeare. And he cannot bear it. Mrs. Ramsay feels him coming before he arrives. She knows that look. He needs her. He always needs her. And the weight of it is enormous. Among the guests are Paul Rayleigh and Minta Doyle. A handsome young man and a lively young woman. Mrs. Ramsay has plans for them both. The whole group sets out walking toward the beach. Golden afternoon light pours across the cliff path. The sea shimmers below, patient and endless. Beneath the pleasant surface, everyone wants something from someone else. Approval, love, attention, freedom. This house is an ocean of unspoken needs. Evening arrives. The lighthouse beam begins its long, slow sweep across the water. One steady stroke of light, then darkness, then light again. The question hangs in the air like the last light of day. Will they go to the lighthouse tomorrow? Will the weather hold? Will anything stay the same? Mrs. Ramsay decides to walk into town with Tansley. She has this instinct. When someone is struggling, she moves toward them, not away. Tansley opens up just a little. His father kept a chemist shop. He worked his way here through scholarships and stubbornness and endless proving of himself. Something happens when Mrs. Ramsay listens. Tansley feels taller. He feels brilliant. She has this gift. She makes men believe in themselves completely. They reach the town. Fishing nets drying on the harbor wall. A woman selling fresh mackerel from a basket. The ordinary world beyond the summer house. Mrs. Ramsay visits a sick woman in one of the cottages. She brings provisions, asks about the children. This is what she does. She tends to people. But walking home, a question nags her. Does her charity actually help? Or is she just performing kindness to fill the emptiness inside herself? Back at the house, Lily stands before her canvas in a kind of despair. The shapes won't come right. The hedge is wrong. The whole composition resists her. What she's trying to capture isn't a likeness. It's the feeling of Mrs. Ramsay reading to James in the window. Mother and child reduced to essential form. William Bankies wanders over to look. He studies the canvas with the same careful attention he gives to botanical specimens. He's genuinely puzzled but respectful. Lily tries to explain. That purple triangle is Mrs. Ramsay and James. Not what they look like, but what they mean. The truth of the shape. Bankies tilts his head. He can see skill in it, he says. But can that triangle really be Mrs. Ramsay? He thinks of her beauty and wonders. Inside Lily's head, Tansley's voice repeats. Women can't paint. Women can't write. She pushes it down, picks up her brush, keeps going. That's courage. Down at the beach, the younger Ramsay children explore. Nancy, Andrew, Rose, and Jasper clamber over rocks with the confidence of children who own the world. Nancy crouches over a tide pool and stares into it. A tiny world. Creatures moving, water swirling. She feels like a god looking down on a whole kingdom. Paul and Minta walk along the beach together. Something is building between them. Then Minna realizes she's lost her grandmother's brooch among the rocks. They search as the tide rises. Paul promises to return at dawn and find it. There's something gallant in his vow, something romantic. The evening is doing its work. Back at the house, Mrs. Ramsay senses it before anyone speaks. She knows an engagement is forming. This pleases her deeply. She believes in marriage. In pairs. Meanwhile, Mr. Ramsay stands alone on the darkening lawn. His mind has returned to that terrible place. The fear that his books will be forgotten, his name erased. Picture an alphabet stretching from A to Z. Most people reach C or D. A few reach H or I. Mr. Ramsay has reached Q. That's remarkable. But Q is not R. He comes to his wife. Not with words, with his whole body, his hunched shoulders, his searching eyes. He needs her to say he matters. He needs it like air. And she gives it. Mrs. Ramsay pours energy into him like water into a vessel. She assures him. She radiates confidence in his genius. She fills him up. But notice the cost. After he leaves, restored and striding again, she sits completely still. Something has been taken from her. She feels smaller, emptied out. Lily sees all of this from the garden. The Ramsay marriage fascinates and disturbs her. It's her subject as much as the lighthouse is James's obsession. At dinner, Augustus Carmichael asks for a second helping of soup. It's a tiny moment, but it bothers Mrs. Ramsay. He's the one person who doesn't seem to need her. Why does it trouble her? Because being needed is how she knows she exists. Carmichael's self-sufficiency holds a mirror up that she'd rather not look into. Before dinner, young Rose arranges the fruit. Grapes, pears, a shell-shaped dish. She treats it like sculpture, placing each piece with an artist's care. The dinner begins. Everyone gathers at the long oak table. Candles are lit, faces emerge from shadows, and Mrs. Ramsay takes her place at the head. She feels the weight of it immediately. The silences that need filling, the awkward pairings, the egos that must be managed. Making dinner flow is invisible labor. Tansley is being difficult. He lectures about fishermen's wages. He corrects someone's facts. He cannot read the room, and the room grows colder around him. Lily watches Tansley and feels two things at once. She resents him for dismissing women. But she also pities him. This awkward, trying too hard. Then the great dish arrives. Boeuf and daube, a rich French stew that's been cooking for 3 days. The smell alone changes the entire atmosphere of the room. For a moment, everyone is united. Forks clink, murmurs of pleasure rise. Tension dissolves into the simple shared act of eating something extraordinary together. Minta arrives late, glowing. Paul is beside her, his face flushed with something unspoken. The engagement has happened. Mrs. Ramsay reads it instantly. She feels a surge of triumph. She brought them together. She saw the possibility before they did. This is what she does. She creates life from potential. Mr. Ramsay begins to recite poetry. His voice carries down the table. Come out and climb the garden path, Luriana, lurily. The rhythm casts a gentle spell. Even Tansley stops fidgeting. The poetry reaches some place in each of them that argument and opinion cannot touch. Words doing what words can sometimes do. Mrs. Ramsay looks across the table at her husband. She sees him clearly. Difficult, brilliant, needy, and somehow magnificent in this candlelit moment. She loves him. Notice the fruit arrangement Rose made. In candlelight it's become something more. A still life that would make any painter jealous. Beauty hidden in the everyday. Lily feels the evening casting a spell. She wants to bottle this moment, the faces, the light, the feeling of being together. She knows it's already slipping away. Augustus Carmichael stands slowly from his chair. He turns toward Mrs. Ramsay and bows, just slightly. A silent tribute from the one person who never needed her. Dinner is ending. Mrs. Ramsay rises and pauses at the door, looking back. The table, the candles, the faces. She's already mourning what hasn't yet disappeared. She knows, in that moment, that this particular evening will never happen again. These exact people, this exact light. It's already becoming the past even as she watches. Upstairs, she checks on the children. Small bodies in white nightgowns, faces slack with sleep. She adjusts a blanket here, tucks an arm in there. There's a skull nailed to the nursery wall, a real animal skull. Cam is terrified of it. Mrs. Ramsay drapes her green shawl over it. There, the skull vanishes. The day ends with the Ramsays reading together. 2 chairs, 2 pools of lamplight, 2 people sharing silence. It's the most intimate scene in the whole novel. After everyone has gone to bed, Mrs. Ramsay sits alone with her book. But she's not really reading. She's finally being herself, without an audience. She watches the lighthouse beam through the window. That long steady stroke of light, sweeping and returning. It becomes her private companion, her secret rhythm. A thought rises unbidden. We are in the hands of the Lord. She catches herself. No, she doesn't believe that. She rejects the comfort of easy faith. She's honestly atheist. The world is brutal, children suffer, people die meaninglessly. Yet something in that lighthouse beam comforts her anyway, not God, just steadiness. Mr. Ramsay appears in the doorway. He watches his wife. He wants her to say something. 3 words she has never been able to speak directly to him. She cannot say, "I love you," not directly. But she looks up from her book and smiles. And in that smile is everything the words would have meant and more. Then she gives him something else. Yes, you were right. It's going to be wet tomorrow. They won't be able to go to the lighthouse. She concedes. This is her way of saying she loves him. By admitting he was right about the weather. It sounds strange, but Woolf understands. Love speaks in codes only 2 people know. Night deepens over the house. Every window goes dark. The lighthouse beam sweeps empty rooms where no one watches. The first part of the novel closes here. Now something extraordinary happens. Woolf jumps forward in time. 10 years pass in the space of 20 pages. This section is called Time Passes. Listen carefully. Darkness fills the house. One night passes, then another and another. The seasons start to blur. Nobody comes. Nobody opens the curtains or lights the lamps. The empty rooms develop their own life. Air moves curtains that no hand has touched. Wallpaper loosens in the damp. A beam of moonlight crosses the floor and finds no one. Then Woolf does something devastating. In a single bracket, a parenthetical aside, she writes, Mrs. Ramsay, having died rather suddenly the night before, was dead. That's all she gives us. The center of everything is simply gone. No deathbed scene, no final words, no weeping family gathered round. Just a bracket. Life continuing around an absence. Why does Woolf do this? Because death doesn't announce itself with chapters and orchestral swells. Death comes between sentences. Life doesn't pause to mourn properly. The family stops coming. The house stands empty through seasons. War breaks out in Europe. A distant thunder that reaches even this quiet coast. Another bracket. A shell exploded. 20 or 30 young men were blown up in France, among them Andrew Ramsay, one of the Ramsay children, gone, and another. Prue Ramsay died that summer in some illness connected with childbirth. A daughter lost. Woolf refuses to dramatize. She simply states and moves on. The cruelty of those brackets. 3 deaths, Mrs. Ramsay, Andrew, Prue. Each given a single sentence wrapped in parentheses, as if death were a footnote. Nature moves into the house. Weeds find the cracks between floorboards. Birds nest in the eaves. Plaster falls from the ceiling in soft white flakes like indoor snow. Remember the shawl Mrs. Ramsay draped over the skull. The wind works at it. Season after season, it loosens. The skull begins to show through. No one comes to fix it. 10 years of weather beat against the house. Summer storms rattle the windows. Winter frosts crack the stone. Spring grows moss on the walls. Autumn piles leaves at the door. One person comes. Mrs. McNabb, the old cleaning woman. She arrives with aching knees and a bucket, trying to keep the house from falling apart entirely. She hums while she works, an old tune with no clear words. It's the only human sound in the empty house. An old woman's song against the silence of abandonment. Think about what survives. Not Mr. Ramsay's philosophy. Not Mrs. Ramsay's beauty. An old woman's song in her sore knees. The body's stubborn persistence. The war ends somewhere beyond the hills. News reaches the village slowly. The world has changed completely. But the lighthouse still turns and the waves still break. A letter arrives at the house. The family will come back. After 10 years of absence, someone wants to return. The house must be made ready again. Mrs. McNabb calls in Mrs. Bast. Together these 2 old women attack 10 years of neglect. They scrub, they air, they beat carpets. They rescue what time tried to take. Floors are mopped. Windows are cleaned. Beds are made with fresh linens that smell of lavender and sun. Physical labor undoing what philosophy and beauty could not prevent. Light floods the rescued rooms. The house breathes again. Not the same house. That's gone forever. But something enough like it to bear returning to. Part 3 begins. It's called simply The Lighthouse. A September morning, 10 years after that summer. The surviving Ramses are coming back, and so is Lily Briscoe. Lily arrives first. She's 43 now. A few gray streaks in her dark hair, deeper lines around her eyes. But those paint-stained hands haven't changed at all. The rooms are the same. The wallpaper, the chairs, the view from the window. But the absence is enormous. Mrs. Ramsay is everywhere and nowhere. The house echoes with her. Mr. Ramsay is here too. Older, his hair white now, slightly stooped. But the need is unchanged. He still demands sympathy, praise, reassurance from anyone who'll give it. James is 16 now. Tall and lean like his father, with the same dark, serious eyes. And he still hates his father. That childhood wound has never healed. Cam is 17. Wild-haired and restless, just like she was as a child. She's caught between loyalty to James and something more complicated. A dawning pity for her father. Then Mr. Ramsay announces it. They will go to the lighthouse today. The trip that was promised and denied 10 years ago will finally happen. Right now, this morning. James and Cam make a silent pact. They will go, but they will not yield to their father. They will resist his tyranny together, side by side in that boat. Lily makes her own decision. While the others sail to the lighthouse, she will set up her easel on the lawn again. The same spot. The same painting, unfinished for 10 years. She will try to finish what she started, The painting that tried to capture Mrs. Ramsay reading to James in the window. But the window is empty now. How do you paint absence? Down at the shore the small boat is ready. Brown sail furled, oars shipped, lunch packed. Mr. Ramsay climbs in first. Then James takes the tiller. Cam sits between them. Lily watches the boat pull away from shore. 3 figures growing smaller across the water. She's left behind with her canvas and her memories and the enormous task of seeing clearly. 2 journeys begin at once. The boat crossing the water toward the lighthouse, and Lily crossing the blank canvas toward something she can almost see, but not quite name. In the boat, Mr. Ramsay opens a book. He reads with his legs crossed, ignoring his children completely. The old habit unchanged. The intellectual withdrawing into himself. James sails perfectly. Every adjustment precise, every tack smooth. He wants no praise. He wants nothing from his father. That wanting nothing is its own kind of fury. Cam leans over the side and trails her fingers in the water. The surface breaks around her hand. Something in her is softening. She watches her father and begins to feel, not love exactly, but pity. The wind dies. The sail goes slack. The boat sits motionless on flat silver water, trapped between the shore they left and the lighthouse they cannot yet reach. Mr. Ramsay sighs dramatically. He shifts. He closes his book with a sharp snap. The children feel his impatience like a change in air pressure. They tense. Waiting. James stares at the lighthouse and remembers. He was 6. His mother said yes. His father said no. That moment divided his entire childhood into before and after. That wound is 10 years old and still bleeding. Here in this boat with the same father, heading for the same lighthouse. James feels 6 again, the fury untouched by time. Back on shore, Lily stands before the blank canvas. The brush hovers. She cannot begin. The white surface stares back at her like a question she can't answer. The problem is the emptiness. Not on the canvas, in the world. The space where Mrs. Ramsay should be is a hole in the air that nothing fills. Memory floods in without warning. Mrs. Ramsay sitting right there, that window, the green stocking in her lap, James at her knee. The image arrives whole and devastating.
Lily cries out, "Mrs. Ramsay!"
She calls the name across the empty lawn. No one answers. The wind takes the words. The grief is 10 years old and perfectly fresh. This is grief without performance. No funeral, no eulogy. Just a woman on a lawn calling a dead friend's name into the wind and finding only the echo of her own need. Augustus Carmichael is here too. Ancient now, enormous, dozing in a garden chair as he always did. A published poet at last. Some things change. Some things stay exactly the same. His presence comforts Lily. Carmichael never demanded anything from Mrs. Ramsay, never demanded anything from anyone. There's a dignity in his self-sufficiency that steadies her. Lily picks up the brush again. The first stroke lands on the canvas. Tentative, imperfect, but real. She's painting not what she sees, but what she remembers. What she feels. What Lily paints is memory itself. Not a portrait, not a scene, but the experience of having known someone whose absence reshapes every room they once filled. The purple triangle returns. That same shape she tried 10 years ago, mother and child, reduced to pure form. It means more now. Loss has given it weight that youth could not. On the water, James watches the lighthouse grow larger. The black and white stripes becoming clearer with each minute. The dream of childhood becoming the reality of now. The lighthouse is not what he imagined. At 6 it was silver and misty, a magical tower from a fairy tale. Up close it's stark, bare, whitewashed concrete and iron, just a tower. Childhood fantasy meets adult reality. The lighthouse of his dreams and the lighthouse of his eyes are 2 different things. This is what growing up feels like, the magic departing. But here is Woolf's genius. Both lighthouses are true. The silvery dream of childhood is as real as the concrete tower. Nothing is simply one thing. Hold the thought carefully. Nothing is simply one thing. Mrs. Ramsay was both saint and manipulator. Mr. Ramsay both tyrant and frightened boy. The lighthouse both dream and concrete. Woolf holds all of it at once. Then something unexpected. Mr. Ramsay looks up from his book and says, "Well done." He's praising James's sailing. Two small words that land like a thunderclap in the silence. James is stunned. This is the approval he's craved for 16 years and hated himself for craving. It arrives now in a boat, casually, without ceremony. Just, well done. Something shifts between father and son. Not forgiveness exactly. Woolf is too honest for easy forgiveness. More like recognition. James sees his father sees him. Cam watches her father from behind. She sees the old man he's become. The white hair thin at the crown. The shoulders that used to fill doorways now slightly hunched. Time has done its work. She remembers him striding past the garden when she was small. A terrifying giant whose moods controlled the house. His boots on the gravel sounded like the approach of thunder. Now he's just an old man in a boat, reading with bad eyesight, shifting to find a comfortable position. The tyrant of childhood deflated by nothing more dramatic than the passage of years. On the lawn, Lily paints furiously. The colors are coming together now. Something is resolving on the canvas. A vision she's chased for a decade, finally taking shape. Between brushstrokes, Lily thinks about marriage. The Ramses. That engine of mutual need and resentment and love. Paul and Minta. What love costs and what it gives. Paul and Minta's marriage failed. The golden couple Mrs. Ramsay pushed together fell apart within years. He had affairs. She grew bitter. Her great project did not hold. Does this failure diminish Mrs. Ramsay? Lily thinks about it as she paints. No, it makes her human. She wanted life to be orderly and beautiful. Sometimes it refused. The painting is demanding something from her. One element still missing. A line, a form, something the composition needs to be whole. She can feel it but not yet see it. She thinks about art and survival. Will this painting last? Will anyone see it in 50 years? Does a painting hung in an attic still count as art? Does it matter? She knows it will end up there, rolled in a corner, unseen. But she must paint it anyway. The act of seeing clearly is its own reward, whether anyone else ever looks or not. The boat is close to the lighthouse now. The rocks visible under the water, dark shapes beneath the surface. Gulls circling the tower, their cries sharp and bright. The lighthouse keeper appears at the door of the tower. A real man in a real place. He waves. The symbolic becomes ordinary. The distant becomes close enough to touch. Mr. Ramsay gathers his things. A parcel of gifts for the lighthouse keeper. Tobacco, a newspaper, necessities. He has been preparing for this visit the way he prepares for everything. Methodically. He springs onto the rock. There's something suddenly youthful in the movement. Agile, purposeful, decisive. For one moment, the old man is a young man again, leaping forward with confidence. James watches his father standing on the lighthouse rock. Something shifts in him too. He sees his father clearly. Not the tyrant, not the victim, but the whole complicated man. His father is brave. James admits this reluctantly, privately, like swallowing medicine. The old hatred doesn't vanish, but it makes room for something else. A grudging respect. They have arrived. The lighthouse reached. The promise fulfilled. 10 years late, and by the wrong parent, but fulfilled. The journey finally complete. 10 years too late. Mrs. Ramsay is not here. She's the one who said yes, who made the promise, who would have given this trip meaning. Without her, the arrival is bittersweet, yet it still matters. Arrival itself is meaningful. Even when everything has changed, even when the person who should be here is gone, the act of reaching is its own kind of grace. Back on shore, Lily looks out across the bay. The boat is there, a small shape at the lighthouse rocks. She knows they've arrived. Something in her relaxes at this knowledge. He must have reached it, she says aloud, speaking to no one and to everyone, to Carmichael dozing nearby, to Mrs. Ramsay's ghost, to herself. The journey is done. Lily turns back to her painting. It's almost done. Almost. One element is still missing. The thing that will make the whole composition hold together. She can feel it approaching. She remembers Mrs. Ramsay's face. Not a photograph, something more essential. the composure, the beauty that was also sadness, the way she held the world together simply by being in the room. The vision comes. Something falls into place. The way a lock clicks open. The way a piece of music resolves to its final chord. The whole picture becomes clear at once. Lily draws a line in the center of the canvas, one clean stroke, top to bottom. The painting is finished. "I have had my vision," she says. The novel ends with those 5 words. I have had my vision. 5 words that end one of the greatest novels ever written. Not, I have made something. Not, I have succeeded. I have had my vision. The seeing was the point. The painting is done. It may be destroyed tomorrow. It may be rolled up and left in an attic for mice to chew. But Lily saw clearly, and that can never be taken back. 2 journeys complete at the same moment. The boat reaches the lighthouse. The brush reaches the canvas center. Shore and sea, art and life, arriving together. What has been achieved is not conquest. Nobody wins anything. But connections have been made. Across water, across time. Across the distance between the living and the dead. Mrs. Ramsay is more present in her absence than she ever was in the room. That's the paradox. Loss sharpened her. Memory gave her a permanence that life never could. Art holds what death cannot take. That's what Lily's painting means. Not a memorial in marble, but a vision in paint. Fragile, imperfect, and truer than any monument. The lighthouse means so many things by now. Aspiration, loss, arrival, the unattainable made real, a promise kept. A beam of light that connects one shore to another through darkness. This ending satisfies not because every problem is solved. Nothing is solved. But every character has arrived somewhere. Mr. Ramsay reached. James forgave a little. Lily saw clearly. Every character's journey complete. Not perfectly, not with bows tied neatly, but honestly. Woolf gives us endings that feel the way real endings feel. Mixed, unfinished, true. The summer house still stands. Changed, weathered, emptier than before. But standing. Holding the memories of 2 Septembers 10 years apart. Holding everything. One more look at the lighthouse. The beam sweeps through the September evening. Patient and steady. It has seen everything this novel has shown us, and it keeps turning regardless. Let the story pause here. The image settling like dust. Before we talk about the woman who wrote these words, let this moment breathe. The lighthouse turning, the sea beneath. Now let's look closer at how Woolf builds this novel. Her technique is called stream of consciousness, and it changes everything about how stories can be told. The novel doesn't move through events the way a traditional story does. It moves through moments of perception. A glance becomes a paragraph. A passing thought becomes a page. Consider the dinner party. In real time, it takes perhaps 2 hours. In the novel, it fills nearly 50 pages. Woolf stretches time like a musician holding a note. Her sentences flow like waves. Long, rhythmic, carrying you forward then pulling back. Read Woolf aloud and you'll feel it. The rise and fall, the breathing of the prose itself. Reading Woolf feels like being inside someone's mind. That disorienting, beautiful experience of thought flowing between memory and sensation and the present moment. That's exactly what she intended. Then there are the brackets. Those devastating parenthetical deaths in time passes. No technique in literature has ever been this brutal or this honest about how loss actually arrives. Mrs. Ramsay dying in a parenthetical. It's the most famous bracket in all of literature. 125 pages of her breathing life, then a clause, and she's gone. Woolf believes death has no narrative. It doesn't build to a climax or offer a resolution. It interrupts. It inserts itself between other things, a parenthesis in someone else's sentence. Compare this to Dickens, where a death gets pages of tearful prose, or Tolstoy, where dying is explored in excruciating detail. Woolf strips death down to its barest grammar. The novel has 3 parts, arranged like a piece of music. Part 1 is an evening. Part 2 is 10 years. Part 3 is a morning. The proportions are deliberately strange. Part 1 is called The Window. One September evening that stretches across 125 pages. Hours expanded until they contain everything a life holds. Part 2 is called Time Passes. 10 years in 20 pages. The reversal is stunning. Years compressed to pages, while hours were stretched to 100. Woolf plays with time like a god. Part 3 is called The Lighthouse. One September morning, 10 years later, echoing Part 1. The same house, the same view, but everything underneath has changed completely. Part 3 mirrors Part 1 perfectly. The same house, the same lighthouse, even the same weather. But the mirror is cracked, the reflection distorted by absence and time. Notice who is present in Part 3 and who is absent. Mrs. Ramsay gone, Andrew gone, Prue gone. The gaps are characters too. Their absence shapes every scene as powerfully as presence. Everyone sees Mrs. Ramsay differently. That's one of the novel's great themes, perception. The same woman is a dozen different people, depending on whose eyes are doing the looking. To Mr. Ramsay, his wife is a fountain. She pours energy and beauty into the world. She is what sustains him. The life force his intellect cannot generate for itself. To Lily, Mrs. Ramsay is an artistic subject. Form and color. The mystery of what it means to be a person, held in a purple triangle, reduced to its essence. To James, she is the one who said yes, the promise maker, the parent who stood between him and disappointment. She is safety itself, and her death is the loss of all shelter. To Tansley, she is everything he resents and craves, graceful where he is awkward, confident where he flounders. She represents the class and ease his talent alone cannot buy. Which Mrs. Ramsay is the real one, the saint, the manipulator, the artist subject, the mother. Woolf's answer is extraordinary. All of them. None of them. Nothing is simply one thing. Marriage sits at the center of this novel like the lighthouse sits in the bay. The Ramsay marriage, its power, its cost, its strange, terrible beauty, is the story's engine. What the Ramsays give each other is both sustaining and destructive. He takes her energy. She takes his certainty. They trade strengths like currencies, and neither can afford to stop. The cost falls heaviest on her. Mrs. Ramsay gives until she's empty. She fills her husband, tends her children, manages her guests. And at the end of the day, there is nothing left for herself. Lily chooses differently. She chooses art over marriage, painting over family. She stands outside the domestic sphere that Mrs. Ramsay inhabits, and she survives it. Is Lily happier than Mrs. Ramsay? Woolf doesn't judge. She shows both paths. The warmth and cost of connection, the freedom and loneliness of independence. Neither is the answer. Time is the novel's great subject. How it destroys, how it transforms, how art tries to resist it, and mostly fails, and how, in moments, it can be transcended entirely. The lighthouse beam is time itself, sweeping, returning, steady even as everything around it changes. It was there before the Ramsays came, and it will be there long after they're forgotten. Time passes. Is not background, it's the novel's beating heart. The passage of time itself becomes the protagonist. Not a setting but a force, hungry and indifferent and unstoppable. The house is almost a character. It suffers time the way a person suffers age. Its walls crack, its paint peels, its floors warp. It nearly dies, and is rescued barely, just in time. Mrs. McNabb saves the house. Think about that. The working-class cleaning woman preserves what the brilliant philosopher and the beautiful hostess abandoned. Her hands do what their minds could not. Class runs quietly through the novel. The Ramsays have servants, gardeners, a cook. The fishermen in the harbor live entirely different lives. Woolf notices the gap, even if she can't bridge it. What can art preserve? This question haunts the entire novel. Lily paints, Carmichael writes poetry, Mr. Ramsay writes philosophy. Each one tries to make something that outlasts them. Lily knows her painting will end up in an attic, rolled up, face to the wall, forgotten. She says this without self-pity. She's not interested in fame. She's interested in truth. Process matters more than product. Woolf believes this deeply. The act of paying attention, of truly seeing, that's the art. The canvas is just what's left over after the seeing is done. I have had my vision. The triumph is in the having. not in the keeping, not in the hanging on a gallery wall. Lily has seen, and that seeing is her victory over time. This novel is an elegy, not just for Mrs. Ramsay, but for a whole way of life. The Edwardian summers, the house parties, the world before everything broke apart. Pre-war England lives in this novel like a butterfly in amber. Those endless summers, that confidence, that innocence. Woolf knew she was writing about a paradise already lost. Andrew's death in France brings the war into this domestic paradise. A shell. 20 or 30 young men, her son among them. The bracket that contains a world-shattering loss. How many families like the Ramsays were shattered? Thousands. Tens of thousands. Bright sons sent to Flanders, daughters lost to grief and illness, an entire generation broken. Water runs through every page, waves, tides, the sea as constant companion. Woolf uses the ocean the way a composer uses a recurring melody. Underneath everything, binding everything together. The sea is consciousness itself. It flows, retreats, surges forward, carries things to shore and pulls them back. Woolf's prose moves exactly like water, never still, always changing. Woolf paints with words the way Lily paints with pigment. Blue for the sea, green for the garden, purple for Mrs. Ramsay. Her color sense is extraordinary. She writes in hue. The purple triangle, Lily's reduction of Mrs. Ramsay and James to pure form. It's Woolf arguing that truth can be found in abstraction. That less can hold more than more. The window is never just a window. It frames. It separates inside from outside. It turns life into art the moment you look through it. Ramsay in her window is already a painting. Remember the fairy tale, the fisherman's wife who always wants more. A bigger house, more power, the universe itself. She's a mirror held up to Mrs. Ramsay and to all of us. Does Mrs. Ramsay want too much? She wants marriage for Paul and Minta, perfect dinners, happy children, a husband who doesn't suffer. Perhaps she wants the right things in the wrong way. Then there's the skull. An animal skull nailed to the nursery wall. Death watching over sleeping children. Even in the safest room of the house, mortality is present. Mrs. Ramsay drapes her shawl over the skull. There, hidden. That's her instinct. Cover the harsh truth. Make the world softer. Protect the children from what she herself cannot escape. In time passes. The shawl slips free. Wind works it loose over years. The skull reappears. When the protector is gone, truth uncovers itself. No one is left to be gentle about it. Mr. Ramsay's alphabet, a to Z of human thought. He reached Q, further than most people ever get. But he cannot reach R, the next letter. The breakthrough that would make him great. What Q means is the limit of one man's genius. The boundary of what his mind can reach. It's not failure exactly. Q is remarkable, but for a man who wanted Z, Q is agony. A philosopher who cannot comfort himself. That's the deepest irony. He can reason about the universe, but cannot reason himself out of despair. He needs a woman's smile for that. The novel's final image is a line drawn in the center of a canvas, one stroke. Clean and decisive. It divides the painting and completes it in the same gesture. That line connects past and present, shore and lighthouse, love and loss, the living and the dead. One stroke of paint carrying all the meaning a novel can hold. Beautiful and enough. Now let's talk about the woman behind these words. Virginia Woolf. One of the most extraordinary minds in the history of literature. Her story is worth telling slowly. Born in 1882 in London. Adeline Virginia Stephen. Her family lived at 22 Hyde Park Gate, a tall, narrow, impossibly crowded house full of books and children and tension. Her father was Leslie Stephen, a famous literary critic, a towering intellectual, a man whose moods controlled the household like weather controls the sea. Sound familiar? Leslie Stephen is Mr. Ramsay. Woolf admitted it openly. The tyrannical philosopher, the demanding husband, the man who drained his wife's energy. That's her father, drawn from life. Her mother was Julia Stephen, born Julia Jackson, a renowned beauty, painted by the pre-Raphaelites, photographed by her Aunt Julia Margaret Cameron. Everyone who saw her was struck. Julia Stephen is Mrs. Ramsay, the mother who died when Virginia was 13, the beautiful, self-sacrificing woman who held everyone together and was consumed by the effort. Julia Stephen died in 1895. Virginia was 13. The world broke. She had her first mental breakdown. Weeks of darkness, voices, a mind turning against itself. Writing To the Lighthouse was an act of exorcism. Woolf said it laid her mother's ghost to rest. I did for myself what psychoanalysts do for their patients, she wrote in her diary. The Stephen family had a summer house, Talland House in St. Ives, Cornwall. High on a cliff looking out over the sea toward a lighthouse. Every detail finds its way into the novel. Cornwall becomes the Isle of Skye in the novel. Woolf moves the setting from England's southwest to Scotland's northwest, but the emotional landscape stays precisely the same. Picture young Virginia at Talland House. 6 years old, 7-8. The lighthouse visible across the bay from her bedroom window. The garden sloping down to the sea paradise. These were the happiest memories. Before her mother died. Before grief moved into the house and never left. Cornwall stayed golden in Virginia's mind, preserved in amber by the loss that followed. Virginia was never sent to school. Her brothers went to Cambridge, but the girls stayed home. She educated herself in her father's library. Thousands of books, read voraciously and alone. The injustice of this shaped her permanently. A mind as brilliant as any at Cambridge, denied the door because of her sex. You can hear the anger still burning in every word. She wrote about women's freedom. There were darker things. Her half, brothers Gerald and George Duckworth, abused her. Violations that left wounds she carried through her entire life and wrote about only obliquely. Mental illness followed Virginia throughout her life. Breakdowns, voices, periods of darkness so deep she couldn't write or read or recognize the people she loved. The mind that saw everything could also betray her. The voices she heard terrified her. Birds speaking in Greek, nonsensical conversations that sounded real. But she channeled this sensitivity into art. The same permeability that caused suffering fueled her genius. Leonard Woolf, the man she married in 1912, a writer, a political thinker, a man of extraordinary patience. He became her anchor, her protector, her partner in everything. Their marriage was a partnership of equals. He managed her illnesses with devotion. She gave him access to a world of artistic brilliance he could not create alone. Together they built something remarkable. The Hogarth Press. They bought a hand printing press and set it up in their dining room. Together, they printed books, literally setting type by hand, letter by letter. Publishing her own work gave Virginia something priceless: freedom. No editor could water down her experiments. No publisher could reject her innovations. She controlled the page completely. Around the Woolfs gathered a circle of artists, writers, and thinkers. The Bloomsbury Group, named after the London neighborhood where they met. Brilliant, unconventional, devoted to beauty and truth. Vanessa Bell was Virginia's sister, a painter. Bold, sensual, free in ways Virginia envied. Vanessa is partly the model for Lily Briscoe, the woman who chose art over domestic convention. Vita Sackville West, aristocrat, gardener, writer. Virginia's great love. Their relationship was passionate, complicated, and transformative. It inspired Orlando, Woolf's most playful novel. Woolf's feminism is inseparable from her art. A Room of One's Own, published in 1929, argues that women need financial independence and physical space to create. It changed everything. A woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction. The sentence that launched a revolution. Simple, clear. Devastating in its implications for centuries of silence. To the Lighthouse embodies this argument. Mrs. Ramsay gives everything to others and has no room of her own. Lily takes a room, her canvas, her corner of the lawn, and creates from it. To the Lighthouse was published in 1927. Virginia was 45. It arrived between Mrs. Dalloway and Orlando, right at the peak of her creative powers. The reviews were mixed. Some critics praised it as a masterpiece. Others found it baffling, plotless, willfully obscure. Virginia waited for the verdict with the terror every writer knows. In her diary, she wrote about the process. "I am now writing as fast and freely as I have ever done in the whole of my life." The novel poured from her as if it had been waiting decades to be born. She called it her best work, the one that mattered most, not because it was technically perfect, but because it reached the deepest part of what she needed to say about her parents, about loss, about time. Vanessa Bell read it and wept. She told Virginia she had raised their mother from the dead. There is no higher praise from the one person who shared the loss. That response meant everything. The artist heard by the person who mattered most. Vanessa confirming that Virginia had captured not just a character, but their actual mother. Alive again on the page. The Edwardian world the novel captures was already history by the time Woolf wrote it. Those last summers before 1914. The parties, the sailing, the long golden evenings that seemed permanent. What the war destroyed cannot be counted. An entire generation of young men. The certainty that civilization meant progress. The belief that tomorrow would be better than today. From the ruins of that certainty, modernism rose. Woolf, Joyce, Eliot. They reimagined what literature could be, because the old forms no longer held the truth of a shattered world. Woolf's great contribution was this. She gave the interior life the same weight as external events. What a person thinks while buttering toast is as real as a battle or a coronation. She argued against the Edwardian novelists, Arnold Bennett, H.G. Wells, John Galsworthy. They described rooms and incomes and social positions. She wanted to describe the flicker of being alive. In her essay, Mr. Bennett and Mrs. Brown, Woolf made her case. "Look at a woman sitting across from you on a train," she said. The old novelists would describe her hat. She wanted to describe her soul. What she proposed instead was revolutionary. Capture the flickering, shifting truth of how we actually experience being alive. Not the facts of a life, but the feeling of living it. To the Lighthouse is her purest achievement of this vision. Thought becomes narrative. Perception becomes plot. The novel moves at the speed of consciousness itself. Sometimes racing, sometimes still. Virginia wrote in a garden shed, a small wooden lodge at Monk's house, their Sussex home. She wrote by hand in purple ink, standing at a tall desk, the garden visible through the window. Every morning she wrote. Every afternoon she walked. The rhythm of her days was deliberate. Creation followed by motion. The mind fed by the body's steady pace through the Sussex countryside. The balance was always fragile, between creativity and collapse, between vision and despair. She lived on a knife's edge, and the world is richer because she stayed there as long as she did. After To the Lighthouse came more extraordinary work. The Waves, her most experimental novel. Between the acts, her last. Each one pushed further into the territory she had opened. Then another war arrived. Bombs fell on London. The Woolf's house in Mecklenburgh Square was destroyed. The library they'd built together blown apart in a single night. Her final months were dark. The illness returning, voices growing louder. The fear of being a burden to Leonard, of losing control again, of the darkness becoming permanent this time. On March 28, 1941, Virginia walked down to the River Ouse near their home. She put stones in her coat pockets. She walked into the water and did not come back. She left a letter for Leonard. "I don't think two people could have been happier than we have been," she wrote. The most heartbreaking sentence she ever composed, and the most honest. Her legacy began immediately. The work survived what the body could not. Books found readers. Readers found themselves. The lighthouse kept turning, sending its beam across decades still to come. For decades after her death, Woolf was respected but somewhat overlooked. A fine stylist, critics said difficult. Elitist. A writer for other writers, not quite for everyone. Then the 1970s arrived. The feminist movement rediscovered Virginia Woolf with the force of a wave breaking on shore. She became essential reading overnight. A room of one's own became a manifesto. Every women's studies course taught it. Every young woman who dreamed of writing found in Woolf a voice that said, Your anger is justified, and your art matters. To the Lighthouse was reread through feminist lenses. Ramsay and Lily Briscoe as two possible paths for women, the angel in the house and the artist who refused that role. Is Mrs. Ramsay a victim of patriarchy? She gives everything to her husband, sacrifices her intellect for domestic harmony. Or is she a woman of immense power, who chose her battlefield deliberately? Lily's independence has its own price. She survives, she creates, she has her vision. But she's alone in the garden while the family sails together. Freedom and loneliness share a bed. The novel reached screens in 1983. A BBC production tried to capture Woolf's visual imagination. The lighthouse, the dinner party, the years dissolving. Film finding its own language for her prose. Adapting Woolf for film is nearly impossible. How do you show a woman's mind wandering from soup to memory to philosophy? How do you film the inside of a thought? Directors keep trying. Michael Cunningham wrote The Hours, a novel inspired by Mrs. Dalloway that weaves Woolf's life into fiction. It extended her influence into a new generation of readers who'd never opened her books. Nicole Kidman transformed into Woolf for the film adaptation. That prosthetic nose, those haunted eyes. A new generation saw Virginia's face and wanted to know the woman behind it. Woolf entered popular culture in ways she might have found amusing. Her face on tote bags and coffee mugs. Her words quoted on social media. The difficult modernist become an icon. Edward Albee called his most savage play, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? The title borrows her name for a story about a marriage tearing itself apart. Even her name became a symbol for domestic truth-telling. Academics built entire careers studying her sentences. Thousands of papers, hundreds of dissertations. Conferences devoted to the rhythms of her prose and the architecture of her thought. Her influence on women writers stretches from Toni Morrison to Margaret Atwood to Jeanette Winterson. Each one found in Woolf permission to write the world as they actually experienced it. Toni Morrison spoke about finding in Woolf the permission to write the interior life of people the world overlooked. The stream of consciousness technique, freed from its English drawing rooms, could flow anywhere. To the Lighthouse has been translated into dozens of languages. The lighthouse is understood everywhere. Loss is universal. The longing to reach something just beyond your grasp needs no translation. Japanese readers connected deeply with the novel. The aesthetic of impermanence, mono no aware, the gentle sadness of passing things, runs through To the Lighthouse like a second current. Anyone who has lost someone finds their own Mrs. Ramsay in this novel. The parent who died, the friend who vanished, the person whose absence reshaped every room they once entered. Every child knows James's anger. Every parent recognizes Mrs. Ramsay's exhaustion. Every spouse understands the Ramsay marriage's strange mixture of love and drain. Woolf wrote a family that is all families. Every artist knows Lily's struggle, the blank canvas, the inner voice saying you can't, the moment when the vision comes despite everything, and the knowledge that the work may never be seen. Mr. Ramsay's fear of irrelevance never stops being true. Every person who has worked hard and wondered, will it matter? Will I be remembered? Knows the terror of the letter Q. Modern neuroscience has caught up with Woolf. Her depiction of how consciousness works, the associative leaps, the blending of memory and sensation, has been validated by brain research. The mind really does work in these associative leaps. A smell triggers a memory. A color shifts your mood. A word opens a door to an entirely different time. Woolf knew this intuitively. Woolf's mental illness has been reframed over the decades. Not weakness, not madness, but a different kind of perception, an extraordinary sensitivity that the world was too loud for. The debate continues. Was she ill or was the world intolerable for someone who felt this deeply? There may be no answer that isn't both. The suffering was real. The seeing was extraordinary. St. Ives, Cornwall. Talland House still stands. Visitors come to look up at the windows where a girl once watched a lighthouse across the bay and stored the image for 30 years. Godrevy Lighthouse. The real lighthouse. Still standing on its island across the bay from Stives. Still sending its beam across the water every night, just as it did when Virginia was 7. Standing where Virginia stood, looking at the same light, the same water. The bay unchanged. The lighthouse unchanged. Only the watchers different, arriving and departing, generation after generation. What endures is not the house or the lighthouse, or even the books on their shelves. What endures is the way of seeing she gave us. Pay attention, Woolf says. Really look, that's enough. Teaching To the Lighthouse is a particular experience. Students resist at first. The plot seems thin. Nothing happens. Where's the story? Then something shifts, and they understand. Everything is happening. There's a moment when it clicks. When a reader stops looking for what happens next and starts feeling what is happening now. That shift is permanent. You never read the same way again. Why does this novel matter now? Because we live in a world of constant noise and endless distraction. Woolf teaches the opposite. Slow down. Look carefully, let a single moment be enough. The attention she pays to a single moment, a dinner, a walk, a glance across a room, elevates the ordinary to art. She proves that nothing is too small to deserve our full presence. Her gift to us is permission. Permission to find depth in the ordinary. Permission to take a cup of tea or a sunset seriously. Permission to believe that how we see matters as much as what we see. The lighthouse still stands. A real beam sweeping real water night after night. A novel still being read year after year. Both sending their signals into the dark. Both reaching someone. Books that change how you see. Not many exist. To the Lighthouse is one, undeniably. After reading it, the world looks slightly different. Richer, sadder. More worthy of your attention. Not everyone loves it. Some find it slow or precious or impossibly interior. And that's fine. Woolf would understand. She knew that not every book finds every reader, and not every reader finds every book. But those who love it carry it forever. Like Lily carries her vision. The novel becomes part of how they see dinner tables, and lighthouses and mothers, and the passage of time itself. The novel's last line one more time. I have had my vision. Lily says it. Virginia earned it. And maybe, having listened to this story tonight, you've had a small piece of that vision too. What a thing to be able to say. At the end of anything. A painting, a novel, a life, an evening. I have had my vision. What a thing to know it's true. So that's To the Lighthouse. A novel about a family, a promise, and the 10 years it took for the weather to be fine enough. A novel about everything that matters. Think of Mrs. Ramsay in her window, the green stocking in her lap, James at her knee, the lighthouse beam sweeping past. That image is yours now. It will stay with you. That image lives in you now the way it lived in Lily. It won't fade, just as it didn't fade for her. Some things settle into the mind and refuse to leave. This is one of them. The lighthouse across the water. You can almost see it from here. That black and white tower, that steady beam. Close your eyes and it's there, sweeping the dark. Maybe you'll reach your own lighthouse someday. Maybe you already have and didn't notice. Or maybe, as Woolf suggests, the reaching itself is what matters most. The journey across the water. The waves outside the summer house never stop. They were there before the Ramses came, and they'll be there long after everyone is forgotten. There's something restful in that constancy. Think about who you'd want in that summer house. Which friends, which family. The people whose faces you'd want to see across a candlelit table, even knowing the evening will end. The dinner table set for everyone you love. Candles lit, the best dish steaming at the center. A moment of perfect togetherness, where every face is familiar and every voice is welcome. Knowing it won't last. That's the secret Mrs. Ramsay understood. She looked at her dinner table and saw its end even as it blazed. She mourned the evening before it was over. Especially knowing it won't last. That's what makes it beautiful. If the evening could go on forever, we wouldn't treasure it this way. Endings are what give moments their shine. Mr. Ramsay would say the weather will be bad. And he'd be right, eventually. The weather is always bad eventually. That's not cruelty. That's just honesty about how time works. But Mrs. Ramsay would say yes. Yes, we'll go. If it's fine tomorrow, we'll go to the lighthouse. And that yes matters, even knowing what the weather will do, perhaps because of it. And that yes matters, even if tomorrow isn't fine. Even if the trip takes 10 years. Even if the person who made the promise isn't there to keep it. The yes was real, and the yes was love. Lily understood this. The painting doesn't have to survive to have been worth painting. The dinner doesn't have to last to have been worth making. The moment is the monument. The doing is the thing, the seeing, the loving, the trying, not the result, not the monument, not the review in the morning paper. The experience of being fully alive in a single moment. Nothing is simply one thing. Woolf's great insight. Her gift to everyone who reads her. The lighthouse is far and it is close. The dinner is ending and it is eternal. Hold both truths gently. The lighthouse is what you dreamed it would be, and it is what it actually is. The silver tower of childhood. The concrete tower of adulthood. Both real. Both yours. James knew this in the end. Both are true. The child's lighthouse and the man's lighthouse. The mother who said yes and the father who said no. The painting that will be lost and the vision that will endure. Let that settle. Like light on water. Like dust in an empty room. Like the last note of a song dissolving into silence. Some thoughts need time to find their place inside you. The house is quiet now. The guests have all gone to bed. The candles are low. The drawing room holds only lamplight and shadows and the faintest memory of conversation. The lighthouse beam sweeps the dark room. One long steady stroke across the wall, across the floor, across the empty chairs. It finds nothing. It asks for nothing. It simply reaches. The beam finds nothing but furniture and shadows and the memory of voices. That's enough. The room doesn't need to be full to be beautiful. The emptiness has its own quiet grace. Outside, the sea turns. Patient, endless, indifferent, beautiful. It has no opinion about lighthouses or novels or the people who love them. It simply moves and moves and moves. The garden sleeps. Flowers closed for the night. Grass wet with dew. The easel put away, the paint box locked, the lawn empty. Tomorrow the sun will find it all again. Somewhere a child is dreaming about a lighthouse. Bright and close and wonderful. The beam comes right to their window. The tower stands just across the water, waiting to be reached. Somewhere an old man reads with failing eyesight. The lamp turned up as far as it will go. He hasn't reached R, he may never reach R. But he's still reading, still trying. Somewhere a woman paints. And the painting may be lost, may end up in an attic forgotten. But the vision remains, inside her, inside the air she breathed while making it, inside the light. This is what Virginia Woolf gave us. The knowledge that moments matter. That a dinner party is not trivial. That a glance across a table can hold a lifetime. That paying attention is enough. That paying attention is a form of love, and love is a form of art. And art is a form of remembering. And remembering is how we hold on, however lightly, to what time would take. The beam sweeps once more, steady and slow, reaching across the dark water from the lighthouse to the shore, from the shore to wherever you are right now. Can you feel it? You don't have to reach the lighthouse tonight. Just know that it's there. The beam turning, the tower standing, the light reaching across the water. It will still be there in the morning. The light will keep turning, and the waves will keep coming in. And somewhere in the dark a novel sits on a nightstand, waiting to be opened again. There's no hurry, it will keep. Rest now. Let the water carry you. Let the beam sweep over you. Let the story settle into the place where good stories go, deep down, where they become part of how you see. Tomorrow, if it's fine, we'll go. But tonight, just this, the beam turning, the waves arriving, the house asleep on its cliff, the lighthouse standing in the dark. Just this. Good night. From this shore to yours, across the water, across the years. Sleep well. The lighthouse is there. The beam is turning. Good night, good night, good night.